Hello again. Now I was talking to somebody about guitar construction the other day, and one of the terms that came up while we were talking was fingerboard radius. And that wasn't a term that they were familiar with and asked me to explain what it meant. So I thought I'd talk about that in this video because there's all bits of the guitar, what the body is, we know what the neck is and so on, but other bits maybe is a little bit more obscure. So I thought in this video I'll quickly talk about what fingerboard radius is, what that means, and how it affects the guitar, why you need to know what it is. Now if you've got an acoustic classical guitar, then the fingerboard is going to be flat, right the ways down there. So if you've got a steel string guitar or an electric guitar like this, if you look at the fingerboard you should see that it's got a slight curve to it, from the E strings up towards the D and the G strings in the middle, and then it curves off down towards the other E string. Quite a subtle curve, but there is a curve there. And when we talk about fingerboard radius, it's described as is measured in inches. So if you have a guitar, say that's got a 10-inch radius fingerboard, what that means is if you imagine drawing a circle with a radius of 10 inches and then taking a section out of that circle, the width of a guitar fingerboard, then the amount of curve that you have in that circle, that 10-inch radius circle, will be the amount of curvature that you have on the fingerboard. If you then think about, say, a smaller circle, say something that's like a 7-inch circle, and then taking a fingerboard sized section out of that, the curve is going to be more pronounced because the circle is smaller, so you get a more curved part out of it when you take a fingerboard sized section. So what does that mean in practice? If you think about a vintage guitar, could have a radius fingerboard, something like a 7 or 7.5 inch radius fingerboard. So that's quite a pronounced curve. That's really comfortable for playing chords and so on, but it does have a disadvantage. If you get down towards the top end of the neck here, and you start bending strings over the middle of the neck, say going from bending the G string here or the B string up to roughly where the D string is, if you think about the path that string takes, it's going to be going over the curve in the middle of the fingerboard, and what can happen then is that the string will start to choke off. So rather than having a clean line between where you're fretting the bent string down here to the bridge, it's going to be catching, if you like, on the top of the curve in the fingerboard, and that will cause the string to what we call choke off, and it'll not ring out cleanly. So the remedy for that is a smoother curve to the fingerboard. So maybe instead of having a 7-inch radius fingerboard, a 10-inch radius fingerboard. It's got less of a curve, so less chance that the strings are going to choke off. Again, it comes as a compromise that it feels different when you're playing chords down here because it's a flatter fingerboard. So that's one reason why you might want a flatter fingerboard, because it gives you something better, more comfortable for bending. Somewhere where you also see a flat fingerboard is on a purpose-built rock guitar, metal guitar. They tend to have a flatter fingerboard, sometimes as well slightly wider profile neck, because if you're doing two-handed work, having a flatter fingerboard, it's more conducive to that sort of style. So if you look at some of the purpose-built rock and metal guitars, they might have something like a 16-inch radius fingerboard, which is a much shallower curve than a little vintage 7.5 inch radius fingerboard. Sorry. So really, you can think about the guitar fingerboard as being a cross section, if you like, out of a cylinder. And it's a bit of a balance between what feels right for you, what feels comfortable, and what suits your style. So like I say, if you're doing lots of string bending or whatever, you probably want a shallower radius than something just like a pure vintage one, which has got more of a curve. But there is another thing that you can come across, and that's called a compound radius, which is what I've got on this Thompson signature guitar. Compound radius really gives you the best of both worlds. Whereas like a guitar fingerboard normally is a cross section out of a cylinder, so if you think of it like that, compound radius neck is more like a cross section out of a cone, where the radius down here is about 7.5 inches, so it's got quite a curve to it. But as we come up the neck, the curve actually shallows, gets more shallow, down to something like a 16-inch radius down here. So we've got the best of both worlds. It's nice curved fingerboard down here for playing chords. When we get up at the top of the neck, we want to do lots of bending and so on. There's less of a curve to the fingerboard, so it's not going to be choking off when we're doing bends, and it's more comfortable for that style of play. So if you hear someone talking about a compound radius fingerboard, that's what they're talking about. Different radius going up the neck from one end to the other. So there you go, that's fingerboard radius explained, what it is and how it affects the way that the guitar plays. Now personally, I wouldn't buy a guitar that I haven't actually played, but I know a lot of people, you may be one of those people, buying guitars online, either used guitars through auction sites like eBay, or buying new guitars from online stores. If you haven't had the opportunity to actually play the guitar, the more you know about how it's built, how it might feel, the better you can judge whether that guitar is going to be right for you or not. And fingerboard radius is one of those things you might want to take into account. So if you look at the spec sheet for a guitar, on an online store, and it says it's got a vintage radius fingerboard, a 7-inch radius fingerboard, that's pretty curved. If your style involves lots of bends at the top of the neck, perhaps that's going to help you decide that might not be the guitar for you, and you want to look for something with a shallower profile neck or whatever. It's all things that you need to take into account when you're judging, how useful a guitar is going to be for you. Okay, so that's that. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in another video soon. Bye for now.